guys, I just thought I'd come on and do a quick video because one of the main questions I always get on Instagram is what are my main Slimming World tips, and sort of what things always work for me, and what I think is best. And obviously what I'm saying now may not work for other people, but this is just what I've done. And I obviously started Slimming World in March of 2019. Sorry, it's either February or March, and in my first 4 or 5 months of following Slimming World, I managed to lose the majority of my weight. So I lost 4 stone, and then just before lockdown I'd managed to lose literally I was a couple of pound away from losing 5 stone. So yeah, so I'm just going to do the little tips of what I find is best and what worked for me. Yeah, so my number 1 tip would be weigh on a Monday. It works for me. It keeps you accountable over the weekends. And when I was looking to start Slimming World, or well, before I decided to start Slimming World, I sat down and I thought to myself, right, I need to do something that's going to work. It was Valentine's Day of last year. I had a picture taken of me with me and Daniel, and I was just so unhappy with what I saw in that picture. I was kind of gobsmacked, and I spent that weekend thinking to myself, right, I need to do something about this, and I need to do something that's going to work. And one of my main downfalls was weekends. Weekends would come along, we'd go out for dinner, we'd drink alcohol, we'd kind of eat what we want. Sunday evening was in front of the TV with like crisps and dip and just like picky bits, and obviously I enjoyed it at the time, but then I always had the food guilt after, and I always felt really bad about myself. And I was like, yeah, so that would be my main tip, is to weigh on a Monday, because it really does keep you accountable over the weekend. If you know that you're weighing on a Monday, you don't go out and excessively eat on the weekend. Like, well, for me, that's what I done. Like years ago, I done Weight Watchers, and I got weighed on a Saturday morning. So after I got weighed, I kind of was like, yeah, off plan day today. I can kind of eat what I want and make up for it for the rest of the week. So I'd go out, kind of eat everything I wanted to eat, treat it as a complete cheat day. And then on the Sunday, I'd be a bit better, but still kind of having what I want. And then from Monday to Friday, I basically starved myself to make up for all the damage I'd done that weekend. So essentially you're not following the plan then, because you're just starving yourself and you're not following the plan properly. So weigh on a Monday, and it makes you, I'm not saying miss out on the weekends. Like, I still go out for my dinners. I sometimes still have a takeaway with my family on Fridays, or like go out for breakfast, but it just makes you choose better options. So rather than going out and thinking, oh, well, I can have what I want, I'll have a pudding, starter, main, alcohol, I now think to myself, what do I want the most? Do I want a pudding with my dinner? And if I do, I won't have alcohol. If I really want like an off-plan style dinner, like one that's not kind of healthier, I'll have that, but then not have the starter in the main. And it just makes me, it just makes me think better and make better choices. And I know a lot of people, the day before weigh day, like their dinner, they'll have like a really light dinner. They'll kind of like reduce all their sins. I don't do that. On a Sunday, I still go out for breakfast. I have a nice big Slimming World roast. I eat normally, and I still always got my losses. But yeah, I would definitely recommend weighing on a Monday. And my other main tip is drink water. I drink so much water. Like Daniel literally says to me sometimes he thinks I'm going to drown myself because of how much I drink. One of my things is I can't have a meal without a drink. So even if I've gone out for dinner or something and I've finished my drink, I physically can't eat my dinner until I know I've got a drink there, because I just get really thirsty when I eat. But yeah, I try to drink at least 2 of these a day. Sometimes I drink 3. Add a little bit of lemon to it sometimes, don't always. I only recently started adding lemon because I've got a bit of dry skin. But yeah, drink your water. Like, I can't recommend that enough. I do like my fizzy drinks as well. So we drink Coke Zero, so I tend to like have 1 of those a day with my dinner. And then I drink maybe a cup of green tea a day and a couple of cups of coffee or normal tea. Yeah, that is one of my main tips, is make sure you drink water. If you don't like water, you can add sugar-free like Robinson squash to it, because it's sin-free, but it still means you're getting in your water then. But yeah, make sure you drink water. Hydration is key. Another tip I would say is to plan your meals. So if you've seen on one of my previous videos, in my head, like I've got on my notes of my phone, anytime I see a recipe that I like the look of, or a meal that I think looks nice, I just add it to my notes, or I save the post to Instagram. And then when I'm doing my food shop that week, I will have a quick look through those posts or look through my notes and think, oh, I'll make a meal plan out of these, and then I'll add the ingredients to my shopping basket. But it doesn't mean that I necessarily stick to that plan. It just, I've got it there in case, like, so for instance, I know then I've got all those ingredients in, so I know I've got the ingredients in to make a nice, healthy, slim and well dinner. But then if on those particular days I don't fancy the meal that I'd had planned for that day, I don't have to have it, but I know that the ingredients are there in the fridge, that I can still make another slim and well meal and still stick to plan. And that is why I will always say to anybody, just plan your meals. Like, you don't have to stick to it, and it's not like, oh, you have to have that meal on that day, but it just means that you know you've got all the food there so that you can still stay on plan. Another question I always get is, so a tip of mine is, do I exercise? When I lost my first 4 stone, I literally did not exercise at all. I went on a couple of walks, and I always tried to kind of hit maybe 10,000 steps on my Apple Watch, but like I wasn't rigid to that. Like, I didn't make myself do it or force myself to go out in the evening if I hadn't hit my 10,000 steps. But yeah, I didn't exercise at all. Throughout lockdown I started exercising, and I was running just because where I was stuck in so much and I couldn't go out, I felt like I needed to do something. And like, especially with working from home, I was getting a bit like cabin fever, so I tried running, and I started running, and I was trying to do like 5k before work. I still do that every now and then now, but yeah, I'm not a massive exerciser, but I do enjoy it when I go, so it's not to say I don't do it, but for me, I didn't need to do it to lose weight. I literally lost just under 5 stone with 0 exercise. So yeah, it's not something that you have to do. It's obviously amazing to do it, and I think eating well and exercising complement each other really well, but the diet is where it's really at. And if you're not eating properly, you can, like, I had a personal trainer in the past, and he literally said to me, you can't outrun your fork. So if you're not eating right or you're overeating, then you're not really doing yourself any favors. Like, you need to be eating properly to complement exercising for it to work for you. Another one of my top tips is, you can still have your favorite foods. Like, you don't have to miss out. Like, for so many of the fakeaways that I make, what I just do is I Google like my favorite recipe online, see what the ingredients are, and think, oh, what can I swap or what can I add instead to make it more on plan. So like, if it means you have to use a few of your sins in your meals, like, don't be scared to do that. Like, that's what I like to do. If it means I'm going to feel satisfied and enjoy my dinner more, I will happily use a few sins on my dinner. Like, for me, I love my American holidays. I love like going to Florida. I love the food. A lot of recipes on my highlights on Instagram, which are all like American inspired recipes from like from the meals I've had in the restaurants over there. So you really still can eat your favorite foods. Like, there's pretty much nothing that's like off limits. Like, you can make so much and you can swap it out. And like, even like, for instance, curries, you don't have to make it with like yogurt to make it lower in sins. You can use a little bit of cream. What I do is I would use a little bit of cream and a little bit of yogurt, so you're still getting that creamy taste but not having quite as much cream, so it's not going to be as high in sins, because I live for my fakeaways and I really then don't feel like I'm missing out. A big thing with me and my family, we used to have like a takeaway every Friday, whereas now I try to do fakeaway Friday and make a different fakeaway dinner. And yeah, and then I don't feel like I'm missing out, because I'm still having that nice meal and it doesn't taste like I'm eating healthy meals, and it tastes naughty. So it really kind of tricks you into think that you're still having those naughty foods, but it's so much healthier like when you make it yourself. And like, a lot of things that like comments that people say is, oh, how can you eat food like this and lose weight? It's because you make it yourself. If you make it yourself and you know what's going into it. So another top tip of mine would be, and this might sound a bit silly or a bit obvious, but just stick to plan. Like if you follow the plan, it does work and you can lose weight. Like for me, last year when I started, I knew that I had 2 hen dos and 2 weddings to go to. So I knew on those particular days or those weekends, I might not have a loss, but that doesn't like mean that you have to like go out and go overboard. So when I went on one of the hen dos, we went out for a night out, I still had drinks, but because when we went for dinner first, because I knew I was having drinks and going like out drinking after, I made sure I chose something healthier for dinner, and I went for something that I knew would be the lowest in sins. And actually when I went to Slimming World on that Monday, I still came in with a loss, and I think it was something like a £3 loss. That was probably due to the dancing when we went out, but yeah, like if you just stick to plan, like that whole week I completely stuck to it. I didn't go over my sins. I tried to reduce my sins on the other days because I knew I was going out that weekend. If you have the 3rd speed with all your meals, stick to your sins. Like I know some people don't, they use as many sins as they can on their weigh day, like they get weighed and then afterwards they'll just have a weigh day treat or have a big takeaway. That works for some people. For me, that didn't work. There was a little like time period, I think it was when I come back from Florida last year, and I'd gained like 11 pounds on that holiday and I was losing the weight, but I then started having my weigh day treats. So we were having crisps and like wine and stuff after weigh-in, and my losses were really small. Like I'd had a big gain, so really that should have come off quite quickly, but it took quite a while for that to come off because I was starting to have my weigh day treats. And since I've stopped doing that again, like the losses, like well, as soon as I stopped doing that, the losses came back. So yeah, just stick to the plan. Another main tip is don't turn a bad day into a bad week. Like for instance, as I said before, I went on to hen parties when I was losing the first initial like weight, and so I knew that on those nights out that we went out on the hen dos, I was going to be off plan because I was going to be drinking, so I was going slightly over my sins. But then that didn't mean that I woke up the next day and was like, oh, I had too many sins last night, so I can just I'll just blow it and do whatever I want today. I woke up and I was extra good on those days because I was like, right, I went over my sins last night, so let's kind of rein it back in a bit today. And that doesn't mean like, oh, starve yourself and have no sins. I was still having my normal sins. Like that one day was just off plan, so just wake up the next day and start fresh. Still allow yourself sins and just forget about the day before. Or like if you know you're going out for dinner or something, I know like in it, like groups that I've been to before, like people are like, oh, I'm going out for dinner on Saturday, so it's going to be a bad week. Well, it doesn't mean it's going to be a bad week. That's just one meal out of 21. So there's been plenty of times where I've gone out for one meal, had the pudding, had the starter, had the main, and I've still lost on the Monday because I've been good for the rest of the week. Like all the 20 other meals I had that week were completely on plan, so you can still lose weight. But yes, just don't think to yourself, oh, I'm going out for dinner, or I'm going out for drinks, or I'm doing this, so I've got to have a bad week. Just think to yourself, right, I can be really, really good up until that moment and after that moment, so I can still get a loss or even a maintain. Another tip of mine is don't go without and don't be hungry. Like I never really feel hungry on Slimming World, except for if I do SP days. Sometimes I do feel a little bit hungry, but I don't really tend to do those. But yeah, so just make sure you're filling yourself up. Like I see so many people say, oh yeah, it's boring, I'm really hungry. Like you shouldn't be hungry. Like if you're eating big meals, like I do get comments sometimes, some people are like, oh, your portions are so big, like how can you lose weight and eat food like that and eat that much food? And it's because my meals are really healthy. Like there's so much veg. I try to cook everything with a lot of veg in it. If I'm making even like a chili, for instance, I add extra veg that I wouldn't normally do. So rather than just like onions and peppers, I put onions, peppers, carrots, courgettes, celery. But yeah, so just don't go without and don't be hungry. Like don't be afraid to eat a big meal. Like you don't have to starve yourself to lose weight. You can really eat nice, have potatoes, have your rice. For me, I don't have it at lunchtimes because I have an office job where I'm just sat down and I don't need the extra calories at lunchtime. So I just tried to have a nice a bit of leftover dinner with lots of veg or salad instead, and that satisfies me enough. Like I don't need to have the extra rice or the potatoes or the pasta at lunchtime. So yeah, just don't go hungry, and you can lose weight. And as I touched on a little bit before, like another one of my main tips is I don't overdo it with my carbs. Obviously I know in Slimming World, like pasta, rice and potatoes are free food, but for me, I just feel a bit too full if I have stuff like that at lunchtime. Like if I'm quite active or if I'm going out and I'm doing something, then yeah, I'll happily have like a jacket potato or something at lunchtime, but I don't need it. Like especially with working from home, I really don't do much throughout the day. I'm just sat at my desk. So I just try to have like my healthy bee for breakfast, whether that be like my oats or my bread. Sometimes I have it with dinner, and then like for rice, pasta or potatoes and things like that, I just tend to have it with my dinner or my evening meal. Sometimes I'll have it with breakfast, like if I make a breakfast hash, but I really try to avoid it at lunchtime because otherwise I just feel like I'm overeating for the sake of it. Another main tip is for my sins. Like people always ask, do I use all of my sins? I do use sins every single day. I don't use all of them. I use between about probably 8 to 10 sins a day. Sometimes I have less, sometimes I have more, but I don't try to use all of them. Like if I have a day where I really fancy something sweet, or I feel that I do need my sins, then I will use them, but I don't eat them for the sake of it. Weigh day, like after I've been weighed, I use all of my sins, and then on like the Tuesday and Wednesday after weigh-in, I tend to have slightly higher sins on those days. In my head, I treat it as a little bit of a treat. But yeah, and then for the rest of the week, I just tend to have between like 8 to 10 sins a day. I really like using my sins just for something sweet, sometimes in the evening or like with my breakfasts, but I use a lot of my sins in my meals. So yeah, like if I'm making like something with breadcrumbs and things like that, or like different sauces. So yeah, I try to use my sins in my meals rather than on snacking on them or having them as like an extra. But yeah, you do what works for you, but that's just what I prefer to do, and it's worked for me. So yeah, so that's just something that I would recommend. So yeah, so they're all my main tips really, and I just thought I would video it instead because I get so many questions about it all the time, that sometimes when somebody asks me, I can't remember off the top of my head. So I just feel that it would be a good way to point them in this direction so that if they do ask me, I can just show them this video instead. But yeah, if there is anything else you'd like to see or anything else you'd like me to film, then please do leave a comment in the video, in the comment section, or message me on Instagram. And